Okay, I don't hear Neil, but I see a little box with his name. So it is 7:01. And is our zoning enforcement officer, Fran Lawley, here today?
I think he's on
Don't believe-
vacation.
Yeah, he can't make it.
Okay. Okay, now I can see Neil. Happy New Year to you. Okay, so, well then, let's begin. Because I see it now is 7:01. And we certainly have a quorum of members here. Good evening and welcome to the January 4th, 2021 meeting of the Brookfield Zoning Board of Appeals, or ZBA, the first of the year. First, let me introduce the members of the ZBA who are present this evening. I'm Robert Marconi, Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Neil Capola is our Vice Chair. Juliana Zach is our Secretary. I do not see Larry Rushmeyer on, and I don't see Joseph Fusilla on, although let me know if you are joined. Louise Trojanowski Marconi is present. Lisa Temple is present. Our zoning enforcement officer, Fran Lawley, is not present. And Allison Kennedy, our recording secretary, is present. Now, the current agenda can be found under board meetings under the Town of Brookfield website. I will call each applicant one at a time when we get to our cases. When I call the property address, please come forward and tell us about your appeal. After we've gone through all of the cases on the agenda tonight, we will close the public portion of this meeting and we will deliberate an open executive section. So that is close the public evidentiary portion and then deliberate in a public open executive session. You must have at least 4 affirmative votes to have your appeal granted. You are welcome to stay to the end of the meeting or contact land use office in the morning. I see we have 3 cases on for this evening, so it might be worthwhile to stay for the end of the meeting. Note that in regards to any appeal that is granted by this board, it is constrained to the plans submitted and to any purposes stated in the application, unless the board specifically notes otherwise. Now, the public evidentiary hearing is only one aspect of the approval process, and it's for the purpose of accepting factual information and data bearing on this application, and also allows expression of opinion by interested parties. The final decision that this board may render may be in the form of approved as submitted, approved with stipulations or conditions, or disapproved. Now, after reading into the record the correspondence received by the board relative to this application, we will then ask the applicant to present the application in detail. The chair will then entertain questions of clarification from board members concerning the applicant's presentation. We will then hear from those in the public who wish to speak in favor of the application, following by those who are opposed. Following each side of the question, the applicant will be allowed to make concluding remarks. Now, all questions and comments must be directed to the chair, that is myself. As you are recognized, please state your name and address each time before you speak, so your comments may be legally recorded. Please be assured that everyone will be given the opportunity to speak. However, the board is most interested in hearing factual information relative to the application, and in view of time constraints placed upon us, we ask your indulgence in simply not reiterating comments previously presented, although you can say you agree with those comments that have been presented. So, turning now to the agenda, the first item on the agenda is a review of the minutes of December 7th, 2020. So I'll take a motion to approve those minutes.
So move, Louise.
Okay, Louise has moved in a second. Juliana, okay, you are muted.
Yes, second.
Okay,
I second.
are there any
I
changes?
cannot vote. I can't vote because I
you-
wasn't.
You weren't there. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is ask, are there any changes or corrections to the minutes that anybody notices that you would like to make? Hearing none, I'll take a vote in favor of approving the minutes. All in favor, say aye and
Aye.
raise your hand. Okay,
Aye.
okay. Neil, did you? I didn't hear you. Oh, yes, I see you now. Okay, so that is one abstention and the rest affirmative votes. They are approved. You have that, Allison?
Yes, I just wanted to, in Fran's absence, just remind, do we have more than a 4-person board tonight? We do.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, 5. I thought we had 4 for a second there, and I just wanted to make sure we were informing the applicants. But perhaps, Neil, since we can't hear you, if you have questions for the applicants, you can put them in the chat or something. I'm not sure what we should do. We can't hear him at all.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I'm looking.
Maybe if you put it on speaker?
Sign out.
Neil, why don't you try signing out and signing back in, and let's see if this works. And I'm sorry for everybody else, but okay. Please bear with us. I hope Neil is able to sign back in. I asked, yeah, we asked him to sign off and sign back in.
There he is.
Okay, very good. Okay, Neil, can you hear us? Okay, I see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. Can you use the chat function? Well, he is using an iPhone, okay. Allison, do you have any suggestions?
Okay, is it working now?
Oh, very good.
Clear.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, excellent.
Can't see it.
Thank you very much.
All right. I apologize.
Quite all
It
right.
happens.
Okay. The next item on the agenda, by the way, is a review of the correspondence, simply that we have been provided the minutes of other boards and commissions, land use boards and commissions. We have no action that's required, and so that is for our own edification. And we did receive a letter from Mr., I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Vacirca, Vacara, I believe, dated 12/10/2020. And I don't believe it bears on any of the applications that we have for tonight, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll just ask if everybody happened to see that or not.
Yes. He's requested a response. He's got some facts wrong. It covers a previous case that we.
Right.
um,
My recollection, though, is that he was not unhappy with the results in the previous case that we had voted.
Correct.
Right. And he has an appeal of a prior case that's pending in the Superior Court.
Correct. yeah.
I'm actually looking for the letter, and because I know I've seen it and read through it. So. One moment.
But are you talking about the letter in opposition to the 13 Foxtail Lane application?
No, this is
Oh, okay.
this is a letter that Mr. Vaquera sent about, oh, yes, here it is now. I found it. December 10th, 2020. And it's a 2-page letter. And says that it addresses 190 Candlewood Lake Road, Brookfield, Z-20-96. He is actually thankful that the variance did not get approved, he says in his letter.
Hmm.
And then he says, I would like to understand why 2 members of the board voted in favor of this application. What is the thought process in the vote? Please advise via email. And frankly, the records speak for itself. I would direct zoning enforcement officer Fran Lawley to indicate simply that if he wishes, he can be provided with a complete record of the case. Besides what was said on the record is that members have no obligation to have to go further explain their votes, and he has no standing to challenge something that he agrees with. So I think that that takes care of that letter. Allison, what I would ask is note that zoning enforcement officer Lawley should contact me about a response to Mr. Vaquera's letter.
Okay.
Okay, so now we go on to the public hearings. And the first one is 13 Foxtail Lane. It's application Z-20-124. And I do note that we did receive correspondence on this that came, I believe, after the main packets were received by the Zoning Board of Appeals members. It's basically a short 2-paragraph letter. I will read it into the record. It is from Virginia and Anastasios Parakis, if I'm
Ruckus.
Parakis, my apologies.
Okay.
To the ZBA, dear sirs. Okay, well, actually, dear sirs and madams.
Sorry.
That's okay. I am writing you in response to a notification letter sent to me about a variance requested by a property owner, Marcos Domingos of 13 Foxtail Lane, who abuts our property at 6 West Canary Road. He wants a variance so he can install AC condensers inside the 30-foot legal setback normally required for such things. I certainly do not want to have AC condensers installed closer to our property line than the proper setback rules dictate. The Domingos have plenty of room on their property to put the AC units within the legal setback lines. We have plans for gardens and a gazebo on that part of our property and do not want AC units installed closer than is dictated by the Brookfield zoning laws, especially when the property owner has plenty of space to put them. I hope that you will stand up for the zoning laws of Brookfield and agree to oppose the variance. I hope to be present at the public hearing on January 4th, but in case something happens and I can't connect to the Zoom meeting, I hope that you will stand up for me. Thank you. And that is your signature, Virginia.
Thank you.
Okay, so that letter has been read into the record. Allison, did we receive anything else after the delivery of our packets on this case?
Not that I'm aware, only the emails that came from Nina.
Okay, very good. So at any rate, I will call for the applicant on Z-20-124. And particularly, I'd like you to also address the concern of your neighbor. So is the applicant, Mr. Domingos, available?
Yes, I am. This is Marco Domingos, 13 Foxtail Lane.
Okay, welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So the reason I'm asking for the variance was this was a new house that we built, and the AC condensers were put in that location because of my mistake, obviously. They were supposed to be outside of the setback, but the subcontractor that was helping me put this on did not realize that there was a 30-foot setback. I guess he had recently did one in another town, and he thought it was 15 for whatever reason. So my lack of due diligence on that part, but the AC condensers were poured and the underground utilities were ran to that location. And so the reason I'm asking for the variance, obviously, is so I don't have to rip up everything and move them 13 feet over to put them within the setback. So that's the reason I'm asking for the variance.
Okay, may I ask you just one quick question? Is it the contractor's fault, or is he liable for any expense if it had to be moved?
No, he's a subcontractor of mine that I hired, and obviously it's my responsibility to make sure that's the reality. So.
Okay. Have you discussed that with your neighbor who's objecting to this?
I'm sorry?
Have you discussed this with your neighbor who's objecting?
We actually exchanged a couple emails over before the holiday, which she mentioned exactly what she had mentioned, that latter. And I guess, I'm sympathetic to that. I'm asking for a variance because it's not within the legal right of where I can put it, so I can't argue anything against that. The only thing that I would say, and it's not a defense, it's the AC condensers are super quiet. These new condensers don't make a ton of noise, and I'm not, it's a large field out there in the back towards her property and on my property as well. And so I'm not sure that moving it 13 feet, to the north would substantially make any difference, to be honest with you. They will be on that side of the property. It's whether you make me move them 13 feet over, or if I can keep them where they are, basically. It's my only options I have.
All right. I'm going to ask any members of the board if they have any questions of the applicant.
I do.
Yes.
Mr. Ming, that's the farthest I've seen AC compressors put from a house. Any reason for that?
No, on the other side of where the property is, I plan to install a pool in the spring, hopefully, and I didn't want it obviously right next to the pool, so we put it to the other side of the garage, which is the closest to the property. So that's it.
If you were to be granted this approval, would you be willing to put a nice barrier of, say, blue spruces or green spruces out there to shield your neighbor?
Sure, it's not a problem. Simply understand. I can understand that. Yeah.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other members of the board? Okay, let me ask at this point.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Oh, of course, Lisa.
I was just wondering if there were, the thought process really behind selecting this area, just because it's more convenient, or is there something about the land? I know on the other side of the house, you want to build the pool. So that area was out, and try to understand a little bit more also about, how these things are affixed.
Sure. And so to answer your first question about how the thought process was, essentially, there's directly behind the garage, so between the house and the area where the condensers pads are, I have a vegetable garden there, so I didn't want to put it in the middle of the vegetable garden, so it's on the downslope to that. And the reason they're a little bit further behind the driveway is because we cleaned the snow in that direction. I didn't want them to be right on top as we plow towards the back, so they're a little bit further behind the driveway on the downslope. But that's really the only things that we took into consideration when locating them.
So can you repeat that? I just want to make sure that I understood. You're saying that you didn't put it within the gardening because of the downslope and also because of the gardening, or it was just because of the gardening?
Well, where the garden is, I didn't want to put them obviously in the middle of the garden. And so we put them on the downslope from there. And that's the location that is presently shown on the survey.
But couldn't you have put it near the garden? Sorry, Lisa, for interrupting your question, but I'm just
No.
also trying to understand. Couldn't you put closer to the garden so that way you're still within the boundaries of the regulation?
I guess I could have, yes, I agree with that. I don't, like I said, it was a sort of communication on my part to the subcontractor where to put them. So there's not an excuse. I'm not trying to get away with anything. I'm simply asking for the variance to hopefully not have to move them. But if I have to move them, then I have to move them. It is what it is.
Thank you. Sorry, Lisa, again.
Oh, no, yeah, and the other part of my question was, how are these, it sounds like you had to actually sink them into the ground.
Well, they're AC condensers, so they're basically, they stick, the pads themselves stick up 4 inches above grade, or they're basically at grade, and then the AC condensers, they just sit right on top of them. So they're about 24 inches off the ground is where they are. The total of with the AC condensers, I mean.
Okay. Any other members?
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Your propane tank, is it above ground or in ground?
Above ground.
Above ground. Do you have to keep a clearance, a safety distance between that tank and those AC units?
Yeah, that's why I actually got pushed in that direction, was because I needed to clear the 10 feet that was required.
Okay, so you'd have to go to the other side of that tank, 23 feet. Well, 10 feet past that, so 23 feet really from where they are now.
Essentially, or
Yeah.
up slope towards the driveway, which, like I said, I'd prefer not to move them there just because of the snow and maintenance for all of that. It's not ideal.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from members of the board?
Yeah, I have a question. Is there anything on the pads right now, or is just, you just have the construction of the pads there?
No, the AC condensers are installed.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from members of the board? Okay, what I'm going to do now is ask, are there any members of the public first who want to speak in favor of this application? Hearing nothing from members of the public, I will then ask.
Mr. Anthony actually wants to speak in favor.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Anthony,
How you doing? I'm Anthony Nijam. I'm actually neighbors of Marco at 15 Foxtail Lane.
Okay, by all means.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally just being a neighbor of Marco right now. I mean, I'm in favor. It's not going to affect my my living at all. So I was talking to Marco about it, and I would be in favor of it. He brought it up to me as well, and I didn't see a problem with it. So I just joined this meeting to be in favor of Marco itself.
Well, thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak in favor of this application? Okay, I hear nothing else. Now I'm going to turn to ask, are there any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to this application? And I know
Yes, I do.
we have the author of the letter. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and by all
Thank you.
means, say your piece.
Well,
and-
I'm against it because, instead of putting it next to his garden, he's going to be putting it next to my property line. And of course, the Nijam people aren't opposed because it's nowhere near their property, but I just don't think it's fair that they can't be required to put it in the normal setback area from our property. When they first moved in, our tenants in that house said that, I don't think they know where the property line is because they're out in our meadow. So we had it surveyed and we put the property line, and I noticed a big propane tank was there, and I just wanted to make sure that was the correct distance setback, and it was. So there's no excuse knowing where the property line is for any contractor because there's a fence there now, our fence. But now he's put the pads in front of the propane tank so that whenever the AC starts up, you've got the reflected against the propane tank and pushing the sound in our direction. And I just don't think that's fair. We've got plans for that meadow to put in gardens and a gazebo, and I just, rather than have it next to his garden, he's having it next to ours, and it just doesn't seem fair. There's plenty of room, not next to the pool, not next to his garden, but somewhere else. I'm sorry that it was all done. I didn't realize that the compressors were there too, because I just read that the pads were there. But why wouldn't he try to get a variance before he put all the rest of it on? I don't understand that. Anyway, that's my point of view. It's very close to our property. The distance from being 17 feet and 30 feet is a lot to me. I mean, it's the legal amount. That's it.
I do want to ask you, the vice chair, Mr. Coppola, had asked the question about whether the property owner would be willing to put up vegetation. I guess was spruce trees, if I'm not mistaken.
Spruce, yeah.
Yes. And about how tall would we be talking about?
I think 6 to 8 foot would be good to start.
Okay. Would
Half a
that,
dozen of them.
ma'am, would that make a difference to you if we did that as a condition of approval?
I guess it would help. I mean, to tell you the truth, until this meeting, I didn't know everything was hooked up. I thought it just spoke about the concrete pad. So I know it's a more of expense for him now. But yeah, that would help. What else? The other thing that would help would be put some kind of a vinyl fencing or something in front of those trees so that the sound would be knocked back towards his house and not ours. Just to fence the side, the length of the AC pads, maybe 5 foot high, or 4 foot high, whatever they are, but solid, just a section, and then the trees behind that. Then
Okay.
I would.
Your house is about 200 feet or so from those pads, right?
My house at Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, it's much further back than that. Much further back than that. This
200.
is our meadow. This is a
Yeah.
different place.
I'm looking at it on the map right here. I can see the lot lines where your
Yeah.
house is.
Well, the house-
It's out about 225 feet from the
Yeah,
property.
the house is not going to be affected by the sound. I mean, it will by seeing it. We see the propane tank right now, but it's that special area of that meadow that we want to do landscaping in and fix gardens and stuff. That's the part that, that's kind of going to be like a sanctuary, that area.
Well, those spruce trees are going to hide that propane tank.
Yeah.
They're going to absorb the noise. You're not going to get any reflection of the noise off of them. They're going to buffer it.
Well, how can I be assured that 16-foot spruce trees, 6 of them would actually be put in?
6 to 8 foot. 6 to 8 foot. It'd be too much to try and get.
Oh, 6 to 8, yeah.
Yeah, they'll grow. After the first year, they'll grow about a foot a year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
I think
can I be assured that that will happen if I say I would
We-
approve?
He won't get a CO on the project if the trees aren't there. It'll be a requirement of the approval.
Yeah, at the beginning, when I announced the opening of the meeting, remember I mentioned is that an application can either be approved as submitted, approved with stipulations, that would be conditions,
Okay,
or it can be rejected. If it's approved with conditions, then in fact, if those conditions are not met, he hasn't met the conditions of approval, it's the same as if it's not been approved.
Okay,
So,
Okay.
so in other words,
Yeah.
that's one of our options that we have is approval with conditions. So that was what we're trying to ask. We try to find out what options people are willing to accept and
Yeah.
consider.
yeah. I think that would be okay, as long as I could be assured that they would be put there, 6 spruce trees planted 6 to 8 feet tall.
Okay.
All right, that's great. We'd like to make things work for people. This is good.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to ask, are there any other members of the public who wish to speak in favor or in opposition to this application? Now I would like to ask the homeowner, or not the homeowner, but the applicant, should I say, to address anything else that has been discussed. Because you get the word.
No, I'm sympathetic to my neighbor, obviously. And that's why I'm here asking for the variance, so I don't have to move it, but if I do, I do. The AC condensers were installed in the summer, so they've been working, they've been up and running since I believe June when the contractor first put them in. So honestly, I think my neighbor opposes more of the fact that the propane tank is more of a view.
Yeah.
That,
Well, I don't live there.
so, but at the end of the day, I'm willing to put some trees up like Vice Chair recommended, and I think that's a good solution to block the view and help with the sound as well. So I know that when you exchanged emails, you had mentioned about the gazebo as well, and like I said, that AC condenser when it's on, if I'm in the driveway, I can't hear it. So if we put some trees in front of it, I think that will greatly help your property in terms of the sound. I don't think you'll really be affected by that.
Okay,
Okay, well, at this point then, we're not voting on this right now. We are going to hear all the evidence in all of our cases tonight and then go back and vote on each one. So I'm going to take a motion to close the evidentiary portion of this application.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, so Louise has moved, Neil a second. So all in favor of closing the application evidentiary portion? Aye.
Aye.
So please stay around. We will then come back after we hear the other evidence in the other cases. We will then deliberate and reach a decision on this one. So let me,
Thank you.
thanks.
certainly, you're quite welcome. Let me go to the next application. We have application number Z-20-125. And that is for 438 Candlewood Lake Road. And I don't believe, Allison, I don't think we received any correspondence on this since our packets were delivered.
Anything you would have received would have come from Nina.
Okay, very good. Well, I certainly don't see anything else that we've received. And so I would ask the applicant to come forward on this one.
My name is Ralph Rosenfeld, 438 Candlewood Lake Road.
Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you. The application was requested. We've been doing a fair amount of work since we moved here a couple of years ago. And we follow all the requirements before we do things. So when Fran Lally was over, we discussed what the options were and the way the property lies and the profile of the property. About the only place we could put it was in the corner that is shown on the drawing. It is a dead corner. There is about a 5-foot elevation drop, so most of it won't even be seen. On my adjacent neighbor, who both the old and the new, both have seen this before I put it to the zoning board. And because there is a line of evergreens, you can't see the neighbor. So they didn't see a problem with it. We just need to get zoning board approval.
All right, this is just a shed then, correct?
Yeah, it's just gonna be a shed under the 200 square feet. It's, you know, gonna be put on a gravel foundation. It's gonna match the look and color and everything of the house.
All right,
So
okay,
I don't think I have much more to say. We're pretty easygoing on this one.
okay. Are you finished?
I am, yes.
Okay, then I'm just going to ask my fellow board members, do you have any questions or comments of the questions of the applicant?
Do. Sir, would you be willing to move that away from the road a little bit? You're 9 feet from your property line. You're going to be about 20 feet from the curb. I'd like to see it go back a few more feet, maybe 12 feet from your property line, 13.
What happens is we'd be willing to move it forward up to the cobblestone edge. When we put the new cobblestone in, it kind of left us about a 4-foot apron. So when you did put the shed, you put that there. But where this is going, even from the road, there is a 5-foot elevation drop. It's an old stone wall, not something we put in new, something that existed there. And we just thought that, you know, for plowing, whatnot, we wanted to leave a little bit of a buffer. So from where the shoulder goes to where it is, I think we were about 17, if I remember correctly. And, you know, as I've been here and I've watched plowing over the past couple of years, nothing really ends up there. It really kind of stays by the shoulder. So I'm pretty confident. I'm not real worried about the shed, you know.
What about, well, that wasn't more of a line of sight issue pulling out of the driveway.
Yeah, there's not going to be anything blocking you because when you get to the top of the apron, okay, there's still about 7 feet. The apron is 6 feet wide.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't have a problem with line of sight. My business is traffic lane closures and I'm an engineer, so I'm always looking at line of sight, so we're good.
All right.
Very good. Okay, any other comments or questions from members of the board?
Yeah, I know that you spoke with Fran and we're looking at the land and selected this spot as probably the only spot that would work. Can you explain a little bit more as to why the other places that may be conforming don't work for you for this shed?
What happens is almost the entire property, okay, is on a slope, except on the opposite end of the property, but that is where the septic, the fields, and whatnot are. So when I discussed it with Paul, he says, yeah, it probably should be on the other side. He goes, I wouldn't put anything on top of that. So we stayed away from the one other flat area. We are also putting in a propane tank on that side, but it wouldn't affect it other than the fact that, you know, that would be right on the property line because we're coming off of the stone wall about 8 feet and we're putting an in-ground tank there. But we would not put, you know, anything else there because of where the septic is and the fields are and the galleys. So when we talked to everybody, we kind of said that was kind of the only smart place to put it that didn't affect anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for members of the board?
I'm good.
Okay, hearing none, I'm going to ask, are there any members of the public who wish to speak in favor of this application? Hearing none, are there any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing none, I'll just ask if the applicant has any further concluding remarks that you want to make before we close the evidentiary portion.
I think as long as you have all your questions answered, I should be good.
Very good. Well, I'll take a motion to close the evidentiary portion of this proceeding. So
So moved.
Okay, and okay, second, Juliana. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Again, stick around. After we finish the evidentiary portions, we go back and vote on all of our cases. So let me then attend to the last case that's on our agenda. And that is application Z-20-128, which is 1030 Federal Road. And counsel, I understand you're here to present the application.
Correct, Mr. Chairman. Happy New Year to everyone. My name is
Happy New Year
Ward
to you,
Masuko.
Attorney Suko.
Thank you. I'm here this evening on behalf of LAD Numero Duo LLC. You may recall that I was here last year with an application for a variance, which we withdrew because there were only 4 members present, and it seemed appropriate to do so. Because we did make a presentation last time, I would respectfully request to the commission or the board to incorporate the record of the hearing last time into the record of tonight's proceedings.
We certainly could, but feel free to refresh, since we now have, of course, additional member. Feel free to present even what you already presented last month.
Yes,
I'm-
thank you.
I'm the one who wasn't here last time. My apologies. But I do want to let you know that I watched the proceedings of last meeting. So I do have some background on this matter. But whatever refresher, I will take it.
Well, thank you all for your indulgence. I do have a few things to add from last time because I know that some board members were concerned that maybe I didn't provide a complete picture. So at the risk of repeating things that you've already heard, I'll jump right into it. In terms of housekeeping issues, Nina, pardon me?
Redundancy is better than omission.
Fair point. I should note that Nina already has the proof of mailing from last time, and I have a more expansive PowerPoint presentation. So if I may share my screen.
I believe Allison.
Co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. So the again, the property that we're concerned with is 1030 Federal Road. It's right on the west side of Federal Road. It's near the intersection with the Route 7 extension. I believe this property is owned by the DOT. The Golden Leaf is here. And of course, this is DOT property here and to the south. The property itself consists of 2 buildings. The front building you've heard about, or I should say the front building will be our focus tonight, and there's an existing rear building. Some property to the rear was taken for the Route 7 highway. I apologize for the scale of this. I can try to enlarge it, but the building is about 150 feet off of Federal Road and is well beyond the side setbacks and the rear setbacks. The property consists of about 4.5 acres. The front building is a 2-story building, and the building is about 30 years old. And as you surely know, this has been a hotel for about 30 years. The view from the road is here. As you can see, it's set very far back, and even though the building is nearly 100 feet long, the scale of it is rather attenuated. We should talk about what has happened to the building over the years. This has been a family-operated hotel from the start, and several trends have combined to threaten the hotel industry generally and this hotel in particular. In the last 30 years, there's been a great number of hotels built in Danbury, and they have become the focus of short-term stays in the area. Many hotels have moved to a chain form of ownership where there is an opportunity for a centralized reservation system. But in a hotel like this in a suburban town, the benefits of a chain affiliation are very much reduced. Most importantly, the property suffers from the absence of vehicular traffic on Federal Road. Once the Route 7 extension went into place, cars tended to bypass Federal Road and this facility. And because this facility doesn't benefit from being part of a chain with any kind of centralized registration, and because travelers would tend to gravitate toward facilities in Danbury, this facility has always depended more on the vehicular traffic and visibility from the road. But with that traffic gone, that caused the building to cause the hotel to be suffering from low vacancy. And the Sproviero family had operated the hotel for a great many years, and it did okay under their stewardship, but they eventually sold the property. The buyer, despite his best efforts, was unable to make a go of it because of all the factors that I've described so far. And so eventually the purchaser gave it back to the Sproviero family. And Mr. Sproviero and David Hawley are combining their skills to repurpose the hotel as a result. The final factor that affects hotels needs very little introduction, but I do have a lot of material to provide. The hotel industry has just been devastated by the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Here's some information from the American Hotel and Lodging Association. As you can see, the impact of the travel industry is 9 times worse than the effects of 9/11. Nearly 50% revenue decline in 2020 for hotels generally. Occupancy rates in 2020 are forecasted to be worse than 1933 during the Great Depression. 70% of hotel employees have been laid off or furloughed. And one of my colleagues did some additional research, mostly relying on AHLA information. The hotel industry will be one of the last industries to recover from the pandemic. 40% of hotel employees are not working, compared to the national average unemployment of about 10%. About 2/3 of hotels remain at or below 50% occupancy, which is below their break-even point. Consumer travel is at an all-time low. I'll skip over some of this so I don't take too much of your evening, but 20% occupancy rate drop since August of 2019. 7 out of 10 hotel owners say they won't make it for another 6 months without federal assistance, given current and projected travel demand. 77% say they're forced to lay off additional workers. More companies are allowing employees to work from home, which means that they're not traveling on business.
I think we all understand the desperation in the hospitality industry, particularly hotels. But I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think we do understand that part.
Okay, well, I'll jump on from that point. The point being that all the factors that I described before had already made this an infeasible opportunity. And now with COVID, it has been the last nail in the coffin. And as a result of that, the owners began to look at how to repurpose the facility. And with the CGN zone, the dominant uses are retail, restaurant, office, so on. Those uses are impacted also, but not to quite the same degree. And there are some miscellaneous uses as well. But basically, this is an existing building and it lends itself to a residential related use as opposed to a retail retail restaurant or office use, which is also threatened these days. So that led us to the zoning commission. We went to the zoning commission and asked them to consider lowering the eligibility requirement from 5 acres to 4 acres for multifamily in the CGN zone. And this is the text amendment that we submitted. And in green down here is the change that we proposed from 5 acres to 4 acres. The zoning commission did see fit to grant that, as I hope you can see from this. And I apologize for the small print. I hope your glasses are better than mine. And the discussion that night is relevant in that in discussing this application, some of the zoning commissioners did go on to say that that this facility would benefit from a variance to promote the multifamily uses that that we're proposing. So if you can see the highlighted text, I think you'll see that the zoning commission not only supported the idea of a variance to repurpose this for multifamily, but in particular expressed a concern about the effect on schools if this was if this did become a multifamily facility that featured units large enough to encourage families to occupy them. So the gist of the message from the zoning commission was when and if you get to the design review process, we'd like to see an emphasis on 1-bedroom units, which would be most attractive to couples and individuals. So Nina has all this, by the way, in case you wish to refer back to it further. So this brings us to what exactly we are proposing. And the regulation here says that in the in non-residential zones, that for a 1 or 2 family, 1 or 2 story structure, the number of units permitted in a single building is 6. Now, you may recall that this is a very large building, the one in front, which is again the focus of our hearing. The front building contains 28 hotel units, 14 on the first floor, 14 on the second floor. Each contains a bathroom. And in the middle of the building are small common areas, including a reception desk on the first floor and a conference room on the second floor. And for fire safety, the second floor does have 4 exits. The proposal is to combine adjacent hotel units into 14 multifamily units with 7 on the first floor and 7 on the second floor. A door would be installed between the adjoining units, and the bathroom in one of the units would be converted to a kitchen. So on each floor, 12 units would feature 1 bedroom, and 2 units would feature 2 bedrooms. The additional room for the 2-bedroom units comes from incorporating the conference room on the second floor and incorporating the reception area on the first floor. So again, the dominant feature here would be 1-bedroom units, and with the intent to minimize the demand on Brookfield schools. If the variance were not granted, and the hotel continued in its current configuration, no one is occupying it on a short-term transient hotel basis. There have been times when people have occupied the rooms on a longer-term basis, and those are frankly less privileged individuals, some struggling with addiction, struggling financially, but they're there because they have no other place to go. And were the hotel to continue with 28 units of long-term occupants, I dare say that the hotel would not retain the character that the town would, I'm sure, like to have in the gateway to the north. So by reducing the number of units in the building from 28 to 6, or I should say to 14, we're reducing the nonconformity in terms of the number of dwelling units, and we're reducing the potential demand on the schools. And the other alternative, if the variance were not granted, would be to simply create 6 units in this front building, which would mean combining at least 2 units, or I should say more than 2 units for each of those apartments. And at that point, there would be more than enough bedrooms in each unit to accommodate families, even sizable families. And that would, as I said before, create a particular demand on schools in Brookfield. So I've heard that the justifications for the 6-unit limit stem primarily from fire safety. As I believe I mentioned last time, this is a sprinkler building. It was constructed as a hotel, which requires a higher level of safety, as outlined here, than would be typical for a multifamily complex. And the property, the building is set back far from other combustible properties. So fire safety seems to be more than adequately addressed in light of the unique features of this historic hotel. If bulk was another motivation for the 6-unit limit, this building is about 150 feet off the front boundary. 50 feet is the setback in the regulations. So we're more than 100 feet more distant from the road, which would necessarily reduce any appearance of bulk. So that, of course, brings us to the hardship, which was an issue last time. And I want to just stress at the outset that if this was a vacant piece of property and we were just starting from scratch, we wouldn't even think to come to you for a variance, because we would have the opportunity to create buildings that conform with the zoning laws. That's, of course, our objective. But unfortunately, we don't have that clean slate. What we have is a large structurally sound building that was constructed for a use that's now obsolete and practically impossible to maintain in this location. And it's the very existence of that building that creates the unique hardship. So because the building can't be used as a hotel on any practical basis, and we need to repurpose it, if you look to the other available uses, as I mentioned earlier, predominantly retail, restaurant, office, none of those lend themselves to this sort of building, nor do they, nor are they likely to fare well under the constraints of the pandemic, which will be with us for some time to come. So dividing the, or I should say, recombining the 28 existing units into 14 is the most practical way to make use of the building, reduce the nonconformity from the 28 existing units, and to take advantage of the high level of fire safety measures that the hotel would have. When we talked last time about hardship, I thought that it would be a good idea to come back to the board with some actual court cases that have to do with essentially obsolete buildings. The full cases have been sent to Nina, so if anyone wants to go back and look at them, you're more than welcome to, but I thought you might prefer a synopsis rather than going into the details of each case. But in each of these four, what happened is that a building, for one reason or another, became functionally obsolete. The applicant sought a variance for some use that was of more utility to the community. The zoning boards granted the variances, and then someone appealed. And on appeal, in each of these four cases, and these are just four examples, there are others, the court found that the obsolescence of the building, the unsuitability for its initial purpose, was a sufficient hardship to justify a variance. And the court upheld the ZBA's granting of the variance in each of these four cases. And if you're trying to read along, I'll try to, you can let me know when to turn the page, because I don't want to interfere with your reading of the memo. But again, we have four cases, each of which illustrate that when a ZBA finds hardship from the inability of a landowner to make use of an obsolete building, it's okay to find that to be a hardship, and the courts will uphold that determination. Give you a minute to catch up if you're interested in following along. So with that having been said, I'd be happy to address any questions or concerns that any of you may have. And if you want me to go back so catch up on the four cases, I'd be happy to do that.
If I may start, Counselor, I think the first thing I think we can all agree upon from what you're presenting is that there's no economic viability with the current property being maintained as a hotel or motel, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what we're talking about is then since since a property owner has a right to try and make use of his own property, the question then is whether a variance is needed in order to be able to make use of the structurally sound buildings as they are, not looking in an ideal world where you would start from scratch at building something that would accommodate the current zoning regulations. That's my understanding of what you're saying.
Yes, exactly right. And if you look at the scale of the building and try to envision it divided into 6 units, each unit would be very, very large and could accommodate a very sizable family. And even if you somehow managed to create a dividing wall and had 6 and 6 in 2 separate buildings, or not dividing wall, but if you took out the middle of the building, not only would it be very expensive and difficult to separate this into 2 buildings, but even then, 6 units in each structure would just not work very well. So yes.
Okay, so the hardship is really the current uneconomic viability of the existing use combined with the only possible use you can have of the existing buildings. Possible reasonable use would be some kind of a restructuring of the space to be able to accommodate basically condominiums or apartments.
Yes, exactly right.
Okay. With that, I'll throw open the floor to all, any other comments or questions from board members.
Since I was pretty much the one who raised the issues regarding hardship last time, I just wanted to state that I really thank you for the presentation, especially for bringing up the case law. And I do see now that you have shown that you have been denied the reasonable use of the property, and of course, that the building is itself the hardship. So I'm satisfied and I have no questions.
Well, and thank you very much for raising your questions in the first instance.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation.
Now, Lisa, you weren't here the last time. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you for the case law as well. We got it today. So I really didn't have the opportunity to read through it as I would have. At first glance, some of these cases didn't, I felt like they were distinguishing enough facts that I wanted to think about it further. I don't know the timeline on this case, but do we have time to think about it and read what you've sent us and have a meaningful, discussion on it now that we have these additional facts for our cases?
Well, would you like to discuss each of the cases individually for a moment, or how can I help with your analysis?
I just want to read them. Yeah, and see how they're applicable.
I mean,
obviously none involves a hotel, unfortunately. So each is a little bit different than our situation, but our memo is not very long. So if you'd like to take a moment and look at it, I can just scroll down whenever you tell me to.
Okay, well, I will take the time and I'll yield to whomever else has questions.
Neil, do you have any questions?
I like the reduction of units down to 14. We're reducing the nonconformity. And the site's gonna improve. It's pretty rough now, and we don't need it deteriorating any farther. You got that empty lot across the street. You got the DOT property up the road industrial. I think a nice apartment building there would be okay. I don't think traffic's gonna be a problem. You got the entrance to Super 7 just to the north, and if they go down through Four Corners, that's great for the businesses there. So I'm okay with it. I think turning it into some nice apartments is okay. And I would be for giving him variance.
Okay, any other board members, comments, questions?
Yeah, I just want to comment, I thought it was a very good presentation, and I think last time we talked about doing some landscaping. Do you plan to do any landscaping in the front, and is the building features going to change with the new construction?
Outside of the buildings? Okay. Council, did you hear the question that the member asked?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay. I think she needs to.
Let me see,
Yeah, she wasn't coming through well.
Okay.
unless you mute, and I go on.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Okay. All right, can you hear me okay?
You must be using two devices. Hi, David Hawley. I did hear the question. I'm happy to answer it. I'm one of the property owners. Yes, we're going to need a design review approval through the town, even after we get the variance, if you do grant it. So yeah, the structure itself will change. The look will be updated and enhanced. And certainly the regulations require extensive landscaping, especially in the front yard. So yes, is the answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the board?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, next I'd like to ask, are there any members of the public who wish to speak in favor of this application? Hearing none, I'd like to ask, are there any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to this application? With that, I would ask the applicants if they have any concluding remarks before we close the evidentiary portion.
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't. I don't know if Ms. Temple needs a little more time to look at this memo. Happy to do whatever she'd like in order to give her the opportunity to review it.
Well, you mentioned that you'd be willing to maybe, if you can restate the premise of the cases as they support the hardship factor, I think that would be most helpful.
Maybe we
Sure.
can take
I
each
think the
case.
common thread in each of the four is that there was a building that had lost its practical function, became obsolete. It was the landowner sought a variance for a use that would not otherwise be allowable. The Zoning Board of Appeals found hardship as a result of the obsolescence of the building and granted the requested variance. A neighbor appealed, and in each of the four cases, the court found that the finding of hardship was justified and the appeal was rejected. So
And the hardship was based on the obsolescence of the building and not related specifically to the land in some way.
right,
Below
exactly.
the
I wanted to zero in on obsolescence of the building because obviously that's our situation. And when the question came up about hardship at the last meeting, I wanted to make sure that we had the most relevant cases that we could find. Yeah, there's a lot of cases on hardship, as you can imagine, but
Yes.
in terms of obsolescence of a building, these cases stood out as supportive of our position.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
All right, is everybody satisfied at this point? I can take a motion to close the evidentiary portion of this hearing.
So moved?
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have closed the evidentiary portion of this proceeding, so we will then go back to the first case. And one moment. Okay, so the first case is the 13 Foxtail Lane. It's Z-20-124. First, I'll take a motion to approve it, and then we can amend that if they're to add any conditions. So a motion to approve.
So moved?
Okay, and a second.
Second.
Okay. Neil, did you want to move to amend that to add conditions?
Yes, I'd like the approval to include the installation of six to 8 foot blue or green spruces to shield the AC units from the neighbor.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that's been so moved. By Neil, second.
Okay.
So Louisa second that. So let's vote on amending the accepting the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now, so we have the motion as amended by adding a condition to plant the 6 to 8 blue or green spruces. Okay,
6 trees, 6 to 8 foot tall,
6 to 8 foot tall, excuse me.
6 pieces. Yep.
Yes.
And are we approving based on a safety because of the tanks? The proximity with the tanks?
I think so. If you just moved the AC pads to just within the to make it to not make it conforming, then it's too close to the propane tank. So it'd have to go even further beyond that. So I think that's the safety issue on it. Given that, then are we ready to vote on the motion as amended?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 And opposed? None. Okay, so with the condition of planting the spruces, the application is approved, conditional approval. And the basis is a safety issue. Allison, do you have that?
Yep, I have that.
Okay. So the next item is 438 Candlewood Lake Road, Z-20-125. And I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Okay, so Juliana moved and Neil seconded. Okay, any discussion on this issue? This is the shed.
Well, we have the topography, the septic tank. Oh, the septic, yeah.
Right, the
So the
topography.
location, yeah.
Yeah, the lake is behind it. It's a narrow, steep lot. It's a good spot for it.
Topography and shape of property. Okay, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, this has been approved as submitted. So now we get to the last one, which is 1030 Federal Road, Z-20-128. And I'll take a motion to approve that as submitted. Okay,
So
Lisa
moved.
moves. A second?
I'll second that.
Second.
Okay. And this one, it looks like the hardship here is, that there isn't a use of the property that's available to replace the current use, which is non-sustainable.
A reasonable use, right?
reasonable use, yes.
Mhm.
Neil, can you think of any other way of saying it? But that's how I view it.
We'd be reducing the nonconformity by reducing the number of units.
Okay, reducing the nonconformity too. All right. Are there any thoughts, conditions, or whatever that anybody wants to put on this? Or as I understand, isn't there going to be a requirement by other town approval authorities for landscaping?
Planning and zoning will take care of all that.
Okay. So are we ready to vote on this?
Sure.
Okay. So all in favor of the application is submitted, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Yep.
Okay, that passes unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Sorry, you had to come in a second time. Second time's the charm. Okay. We do have one other bit of business, which is the nomination and election of officers for the 2021 calendar year. We have been thankfully finished with 2020. So at any rate, why don't we, I'm not sure which office we go for first. Well, let's move for secretary. I'll move to re-elect Juliana Zock as secretary.
Second.
Okay, we got a second.
Yeah.
Juliana, would you like that for another term?
Sure, thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, opposed. So congratulations, you're secretary for another term. Okay, for vice chairman, I am going to move Neil Capola for another term as vice chairman. Second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No opposed. And so Neil, I imagine you are accepting for another term as vice chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well then,
And then we nominate you for chairman.
okay, well, second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I accept. Thank you so
I
much.
said we, but I didn't even know if it was we, but
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I believe our next meeting is scheduled for February 1st, 2020. Or excuse me,
21.
2021. See, I'm already making the mistake on dates. Actually, on the agenda, it's listed for 2020. I
No.
guess I have 2020 vision. But my apologies. In fact, I want to move away from 2020. So at any rate, I thank you all. I believe it's going to be another Zoom meeting. I don't see us having in-person meetings until probably the summer at least, until the vaccinations get widespread. But in the meantime, I thank you all. I'll take a motion to adjourn. So move from Louise.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Everybody have a